Good evening, everybody. This is Casper from the Tropical Weather Threat Society bringing you our nightly update. And we've had a little bit more organization take place here today with Invest 98L, which is now entered into the eastern portions of the Caribbean. We take a look at the latest information from the National Hurricane Center's 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time outlook. Invest 98 currently has a 70% chance of development over the next 48 hours and a 90% chance of development over the next 7 days. This one's going to be a very tricky one, folks. Taking a look at a little bit more of a recent radar or a recent visible satellite loop, we're starting to notice the development of quite a few shower and thunderstorms here all along the southern side, and starting to get what looks to be a little bit of a rotation and spin there. Well, we do have a area of rotation. Taking a look here at cyclonic WX, you can see with microwave imagery and stuff like that. So we do have a circulation, but the circulation is not at the surface at this time. As you can see by taking a look here at EarthNull using a real-time and kind of a GFS model forefront here, we could see that the wave still remains a very highly amplified wave axis with no closed center of circulation. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our trusty green circle right on the very peak part of that wave axis, and you can see that is going to be the closest place to where we have the strongest winds down here on the surface. What we don't have is any of these westerly winds to be able to close off the circulation. But this is at the surface. Now, as we go up in height, you are going to notice some significant changes. So now we're going to jump up to the 1000 millibar level. We still don't see anything. We still have an amplified wave axis. And the 1000 millibar level, we're just maybe 1,000 feet off the surface. Now, as we jump up to the 850 millibar level, we're starting to see a little bit of rotation. Now, this is approximately 5,000 feet or around 1 mile above the ocean surface. And we're seeing a little bit, albeit very weak, attempt at closing off a circulation that would be over the top of the wave axis, over the peak part of it. But if we come up to the 700 millibar level, we're getting a little bit broader. We're getting a little bit of a better signal here. We're about 10,000 feet up above the ocean surface at this point. As soon as we come up to the 500 millibar level, all right, we're at about 18,000 feet at this point. We do not have this circulation or this area of spin located over where the surface trough is, or the wave, the amplified surface wave axis. That is critical because a tropical cyclone would like to have and really requires vertical alignment to where everything is stacked on top of one another. But if we go surface 1,850, we're starting to get a little bit of development there. The 700 is trying to be there. And then the 500 is offset off to the, we'll call it the east-southeast at this point. The moment that this wave begins to slow down, this center of circulation in the mid-levels and the surface feature are likely to align. And as we go forward, this is going to be a problem. regardless of what scenario outcome we look at here. And we're going to go over a couple of them here tonight. It doesn't matter what way this goes, there will be some significant impacts to portions of the Caribbean. And depending on what solution, it could range from severe wind and rain impacts to some moderate wind impacts, but still some severe rain. So, taking a quick look at our spaghetti plots, as you can see here, we have got a broad and wide area of solutions from the GFS all the way up here to the UK Met down here, and just about every single point in between. So, what that means is that we are going to have a collapse in steering currents. Now, everything is going to depend upon the intensity that this can acquire over the next 72 hours. Or 72 hours, maybe even getting into the 96 range. If this is, and really where the launching point of this system is. So let's take a look at our ensembles. Now here we have the Euro, we call this the Euro Legacy. This is the original Euro ensembles. No artificial intelligence added to it. This is the legacy model. So here we are, and now we're going to run this forward, and we'll note that when we get for about the first 24 hours, things are moving along at a decent little pace. Then when we get to about the 30, 36 to where things really begin to slow down. So if we look at the distance that it gained in the first 24, and then add the distance that it gained in the next 24, there's not a lot of progress. So it is at this point to where we're starting to see a lot more circles show up, to where with the overall steering flow and the wind speeds and the currents and everything, the way that they're going to kind of compete with one another and collapse, that is going to then kind of make a determination and allow potentially for that surface trough, if it hasn't developed already, to definitely be able to then be caught up by the mid-level circulation. So at this point in time, within the next 48 hours, I would say development is quite likely at this point. And we're certainly, I wish this wasn't the case. Now, as we continue to run this forward, we're going to get out to 72. Notice, we're already seeing a wide divergence even within the one model itself, to where at 72 hours, we have already got a couple lines here and a camp down here. This is just a 72-hour forecast, folks. A very wide ellipse or area of uncertainty. And that's only going to grow as we go forward. And please keep in mind, we're only 72 hours out. Now, as we continue to run this forward, we'll see that there is a camp. One solution has this being strong enough to being captured a little bit and grabbed, a high pressure ridge that's going to be set over here would then be allowed to kind of steer it up this way, gets it up into the southwestern Atlantic, kind of stalls out there for a little bit, waiting on the next frontal boundary to come through, picks it up, takes it out, and gone. That's one scenario. And that's a lot of what the GFS favors. Well, the Euro, on the other hand, is favoring a little bit something different. As you can see, and especially the deterministic, we've got a large camp that brings it a lot further to the west and to the south. And that's also where the launching point is on this. If the launching point is near or above 15 degrees north, then at that point it may have the opportunity to turn northward and get into parts of Hispaniola. If it doesn't, or if it's not strong enough, I mean, there's all types of factors here, then the high pressure that would be building over to its northwest becomes the dominant feature. And you are going to then get winds clockwise around that high pressure that is then going to help to eventually steer this storm somewhat to the west. Now, whether that be due west, some models show maybe a west southwest track. Some models, not a lot, show a west northwest track, but a lot of them just kind of leave it here for an extended period of time. So let's go ahead. Now we're here at day 5. We're going to run this all the way out to day 7. If this storm is still around at this point in time, it would not be unlikely to see this turn into a major hurricane, because the high pressure then that would be off to its northwest has allowed the storm on its clockwise flow to get further west into the Caribbean, where there is an increase in oceanic heat content, and at the same time it would also be able to develop its own upper level environment and allowing for great outflow to occur and basically creating this into an absolute nightmare. So again, these are the majority of the 2 tracks. There are some that still remain to keep it weak and then drive it into parts of Central America. This is an unlikely scenario, but it is still on the table. Now, after day 7, depending on where this is, as we can see, I'll jump this back out to the Atlantic. A couple of them make this wide turn to the west in response. But even if it does, a frontal boundary is forecast to be moving in at about the same time. That is should, with everything of what we see, that should protect United States interests. But for folks anywhere in the Caribbean, anywhere into the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, the only folks out here are the folks in the Lesser Antilles that, and potentially Puerto Rico, that are becoming a little bit more safe. But the GFS has a solution that would bring some peripheral impacts to the island of Puerto Rico there. Now, so I know we spent quite a bit of time on one particular model, but let's compare the Euro to the GEFS. This is NOAI, GEFS legacy model. Now, again, we're going to run this forward. There's the first 24 hours, still gaining a pretty decent amount of forward speed. But then we lose a lot of that forward speed. Here we are out 48 hours. Now we start to get the potential for some quicker development. If it is stronger, it would have a tendency to pull northward a lot faster because it's going to feel a flow at a higher level. And that should impart a little bit of a northerly turn. Now, as we get out into day 4, you will notice that the majority of the models, pretty much all of them, want to bring this up with some type of interaction with Hispaniola. But as we continue to run this forward, notice the ones that are off to the west. They didn't get an opportunity to get out and away. They are now too far west and are now being influenced by the high pressure over the portions of the Gulf. That and the southeastern United States. That then starts to impart a little bit more of a kind of a lull in its forward speed. And as you could see, even though we get one way out to the west, When we get it out here to day 10, the majority of it wants to take it out to the north and to the east. Yes, there's going to always be that one line that shows a beeline into Florida. 3%. But then if you were to consider that we saw none of that with the Euro legacy, we've got one here with the GEFS. Now we're talking about 1 out of 80. I certainly wouldn't bet the house on that. So again, there's a lot of uncertainty, and just notice the difference between what happens if this were to organize and get developed a little quicker than it would be if it didn't. Now, we're going to now compare our legacy models with our AI models. This is the Euro AI. Now, as we run this forward again, there's that first 24 hours. There's that jump in quick forward speed, forward momentum, and then things begin to slow down. We're out 48 at this point in time. The ones that do get itself organized and try to develop early, some of them turn up into parts of Hispaniola. You don't see much on the Euro AI drifting this out to the west. But then, if the storm were to linger, then we can see some of these model members then potentially get it out here into parts of the Western Caribbean, and then we could see organization and intensification. Now, let's go ahead and compare all that with kind of the season's best performing model, and that is the Google DeepMind. And let me hit refresh on this. Do we have? I still don't have the 12Z. So this is the 6Z here, and I could probably I use Google DeepMind's Weather Lab. I know there's other places out there that have some of that information. Let me check here and see. Let's see. So they do have the 12Z here. We didn't get it on the Weather Lab itself. So as you can see, there are some camps here with the Google DeepMind that want to bring this up and over portions of Hispaniola, then exiting out to the northeast. But then there are some that do not allow it to get out, and that allow this to creep further and further to the left. If we look at these values here on the left-hand column, all of these numbers, this very last column right here, this is all of these last numbers. That is representative of each individual model member's maximum, lowest central pressure. So you have some 1,008 never get themselves developed. You've got what, 1, 2, 5, 6 ensemble members that don't develop anything. That equates to 12%. If we take a look at the model members, let's say in the blue, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Our blue represents pressures from 980 millibars to 999. So we're looking at a, 1 in 4 chance. We said what? 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All right, so that equates to 26% on our blue. It's the ones that are obviously in this column here. Wow, that did not work out very well at all. It's the ones up here. Anything in these colors, the red, That's definitely you're certainly getting a hurricane at that point. Anything into the pink, we're getting into below 950 millibars. At that point, you're likely looking at a major hurricane. I mean, you're on the cusp or very close. And then there's some of them that are like, we don't want to see this. 905, 906. Any of these pinks, we don't want to see any of that. We don't. And especially something in the low 900s. Now, thankfully, for, anybody that may want to know, there's only a 4% chance of low 900s. But as far as like a major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And that's pretty much all of the ensemble members that make it off to the left and make it off to the west. So if this does, by some chance, slip, we're in trouble, folks. Somebody is. It does not look like U.S. interest, but it's going to be a significant problem for somebody if this does not end up over portions of Hispaniola over the coming next few days. If this does slip to the left and slip to the west, big impacts for somebody is going to be likely. So now we are going to take a look at our deterministic runs. We've got the Euro on the left and the GFS on the right. These two graphics are representative of our 850 millibar cyclonic vorticity. This measures area of rotation or spin approximately 5,000 feet above the ocean surface. Now, these are the 12Z runs, and as we could see, the Euro and the GFS both want to develop this rather quickly, within the next 48 hours. And I think that would be a likely scenario. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot, because if you look at both of these graphics, you're like, well, Casper, I don't see much difference. But it's subtle, but there is. The Euro is located just a little bit further to the west than what we've got with the GFS. That's a terrible arrow right there. The GFS is also just a touch bit further to the north than what we have on the Euro. Now again, it doesn't seem like a lot, but that is crucial going forward, because you've got this area of high pressure that is going to be right here. Where does the edge of this high pressure, right now it's kind of in this region, but it is going to be forecast to expand further that way as this long wave trough moves out. We are also anticipating a high pressure that is going to try to be wanting to steer it this way, off to its east. Now, we're not going to see that on the 850 millibar because we're too low into the atmosphere. But we can see the high pressure that is going to be responsible for sliding into place here if this gets a little bit too far to the left. Now, let's erase this and go forward a little bit. And as we could see, we're into the 72, 78 hour. Now, here's the big difference, because the Euro still well offshore, starting to approach areas getting over here towards Jamaica, not very strong. The GFS, on the other hand, has pulled a hard turn to the north and maybe a little bit more of an easterly component on that. And we end up with this particular system moving into parts of Hispaniola. Now, as we roll this forward, notice we've gone from 78 hours all the way to 120. Did you see the euro move anything? It's still sitting there. Now, the GFS has moved a little bit, kind of developed into dual area of vorticity, a very broad, large area of rotation, and then is waiting on this next low pressure here that would be located over the Mississippi Valley here at this point at hour 150. It is waiting on that to help erode the high pressure back here and give it an escape route. But notice, we're at 120 and that high pressure is still over the north of it, and here comes the euro. Here comes that next trough. It is starting to weaken that high pressure. It is allowing for an area of, escape at this point in time. And folks, that euro deterministic, and you think about the entire time here, we'll go back to hour 72. This is 3 days. Think about the proximity to Jamaica on this. And it's going to be raining constantly. This just is the area of spin. This doesn't have anything to do with the clouds or the rotate or like the thunderstorms or anything at the rain bands. This is just the spin. And it's tightening up, and it's turning itself into an absolute monster at this point in time, and then making potentially a shot across Jamaica, eastern Cuba, and parts of the Bahamas. So this is one of the reasons why it's highly recommended for folks all throughout the Caribbean here, especially the Greater Antilles, even folks into Central America, the Bahamas, Caymans, Jamaica, folks. Don't let your guard down on this one. There's enough uncertainty within the next 72 hours to where we may not know that it's going to go somewhere until it actually occurs. And then it may decide that it wants to go nowhere. And that would be a terrible scenario. So what we're going to do now is take a look at our humidity. And on the top two graphics, we have the 500 millibar humidity. On the bottom two graphics, we have the 700 millibar humidity. These graphics are to represent the atmosphere between approximately 10,000 and 18,000 feet, excuse me, above the ocean surface. Browns are going to represent our dry air, and our greens are going to represent our moist air. Now, we have the euro on the left and the GFS on the right. Now, we've seen through what our deterministic runs show through our vorticity model, we've seen exactly what the area and the focal point of the storm is forecast to be. So now, by taking a look at these models, what we're doing is really trying to take a look at where that dry air is over portions of the Gulf and how that is reinforced, time after time to not necessarily allow for this to turn into a U.S. threat. So as you can see, especially on the top two graphics, there comes a lot of that dry air. You can see a little bit of clockwise rotation representative of that high pressure. This is what is kind of concerning with the euro. If it does end up getting over the top of it, it'll trap it. If it ends up kind of parallel with it, it'll stall it, like we see here with the euro solution. The GFS, on the other hand, got it up and over out of the Caribbean, allowed the storm to then, try to reorganize a little bit, gets picked up by the next trough, and ushers out to the history books. But then, as you can see, where that dry air ends up replacing here on the GFS, the top right graphic. Because of the low pressure center being out a lot further to the north and to the east, that allows for a lot of that dry air to filter down. If we look at what we see with the Euro solution, we see that there is a lot of dry air that will be existing with this frontal boundary, and the development of that system is going to help then usher some of that dry air further down into parts of the basin. Now, that could be an inhibitor, but without much shear, you're not going to see much of that at all. We do see a lot of that moisture here associated on the Euro, offset to the east. So this could be representative of some shear there, but we eventually end up kind of rolling it over, end up with a tight circulation and gradient, and a extreme amount of moisture that would then be associated with it. But as soon as it exits, look at the dry air that then replaces this. So once we get rid of this threat, it looks like that we're probably not going to see much more activity for the 2025 season. Now, I've got a new set of graphics here tonight, and just to show everybody as far as the humidity and the difference between the stall, there's going to be some potential for some catastrophic rainfall existing. And as you could see with the GFS develops this quickly and moves into parts of Hispaniola. But as you could see for Hispaniola, we're looking at the maximum value here in 4 days on the GFS. Keep in mind, there's a lot of mountainous terrain there in Hispaniola. The maximum is 30.53 inches. That is obviously somewhere within this zone of our, pink colors here. So we're not saying that Hispaniola would see 30 inches of rain. But what we're saying is that this would certainly lead to some significant flash flooding across those elevated areas. And then also, if it follows the GFS's solution, look at this little spot down here for Puerto Rico. We're looking at potentially 5, 6, maybe more inches of rain. Now, as you can see by looking at the Euro solution, well, this is a little bit of a different story. Remember, that subtle shift to the south and to the west compared to, and a little weaker, compared to what we saw with the GFS. Now, as we run this forward, we remember, this isn't going to go anywhere. And look at these rainfall totals. This is crazy. Because the Euro, granted, it's over water, but look at portions of Jamaica. You're well within this purple range of 16 inches. Anything in the purple is 14. And then you only go up from there. Well, the max value, and granted, it would be over the open waters here in the Central Caribbean, 57 inches, folks. And look at Eastern Cuba. You're getting in, again, some of these purples. Getting into parts of the Bahamas. We're getting into some of these higher up into the blues. 8 inches. Regardless what happens. Now, and notice, this is not indicative and showing a scenario to where it gets out over here. Some of the ensemble members show this getting into parts of the Western Caribbean. So wherever this goes, because of its slow motion, we are going to be looking at significant rainfall amounts that are definitely going to lead to points and areas prone to flash flooding. So I can't stress this enough. This one is going to be rather impactful. Now, we are going to take a look at that wind shear that we were talking about. The Euro shows some, the GFS, it doesn't really have it it's going to be there, but it's not as impactful over the first 72 hours. As you could see here, by the time we get to 48 and then 72, we certainly have a low pressure system here with a little bit of ventilation from the subtropical jet stream, allowing for a little bit more of enhancement and some intensification, although land interaction here with parts of Hispaniola would then halt, or at least severely interrupt its intensity and its intensification further. Now, with the euro, we're down here to 998 millibars. Please keep in mind that we've got a lot of this shear here off to its north. Now, as we continue to run this forward, there is some of that southwesterly shear that is helping to keep the pressures kind of minimized, or at least mitigated, where we're looking at on the euro, to where we don't have this explosive intensification. But we're starting to see signals to where we could get a little bit of its own environment beginning to develop. And as you can see here, in response to that, the pressures then begin to fall in earnest. 964, 962, 55, 51, 43, then it makes contact with Jamaica. That would be a major hurricane. There's no doubt about it. And then it is moving through portions of, populated areas as still a very high end, or very impactful storm. Whether it's an actual major hurricane by the winds, at that point in time, 953, we're getting into that range to where it could be a strong Cat 2, but nobody's really going to care whether it was a strong Cat 2 or a minimal Cat 3 at those pressures. That's going to be a very impactful storm. So if you add that with the winds and with the rain, this would be potentially catastrophic if that particular scenario is the one that turns out to be. So again, really our best scenario right now is a very low chance that this stays undeveloped, gets captured, gets too far to the west, remains undeveloped, and then is ushered by the high pressure off to its north and west and north into parts of Central America as an undeveloped system. But the chances of that are not very high at all. There's a much higher chance to see a much more impactful storm than there is not with the signals that we are looking here today. So, folks, I cannot stress this enough. The database, North America here, use your official resources, folks. Please use your official resources. Check back with the National Hurricane Center. Make sure that you are using your official resources, because this one, don't allow people to hype. There's a ton of uncertainty right now. And unfortunately, by the time that some certainty were to come to play, we're not going to have much time. And if we look at the National Hurricane Center, I should have pulled this up. They actually have key messages for Invest 98L. And as you can see, key message number one, tropical wave is gradually becoming better organized and is likely to become a tropical depression or storm over the central Caribbean Sea during the next few days. I don't think that it would become a tropical depression. I do truthfully believe it'll jump straight to storm because of the winds that are already out there. And now, number two, while there is significant uncertainty in the eventual track and intensity of the system, interests in Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, Jamaica, and Cuba should monitor its progress, as there is a risk of heavy rain and flooding, strong winds, rough surf later this week. I'm going to add in folks into the Turks and Caicos, the Bahamas, Nicaragua, Honduras, Caymans. I'm going to add those folks in there as well because you guys need to be included because it is not a non-zero chance with this. Granted, if it is points further west, we will get more time to prepare compared to the spots that we have here for Hispaniola, Jamaica, and stuff like that. But I mean, it don't let your guard down on this one, folks. This one is, unfortunately, we've had a very good season trying to keep things lessened and, no major impacts. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like that we're going to get out of this season uh, with, you know, without having really, really significant impacts to somebody due to direct interactions with a tropical cyclone. Yes, we had landfall in Bermuda with Imelda, but if you really looked at the wind data, a lot of it was on the southern side and the southwestern part of the archipelago. The northeastern side of the archipelago really didn't get hit that hard. That's where the airport and a lot of your infrastructure is. So it's they got lucky. There's no doubt about it. But unfortunately, with the signals that I see here with 98L and the potential for its development and its continued organization over the last 24 hours, I don't think we're going to get out of the rest of this year without having significant impacts to folks. So please be prepared for this. And right now, I would say that we could start a multi-live update on this, but we don't even have advisories. So it would I don't see the abilities, the amount of information that we would need for multiple live streams. It's difficult to come across because we're not getting issued advisories for this yet. All right, now jumping into the MJO. If you guys got any questions about that, please feel free to ask. I'm gonna talk about the MJO here real quick, and then I am gonna check for any questions. So if you guys got any, please feel free. Now, what we have here is our Madden Julian oscillation forecast. This is off of the GFS. As you can see, it starts right here, and the forecast and ensembles take it out this way. We live in the areas in and around phase 1 here. 8 can have a little bit of influence on us, and 2 can as well. Maybe a little bit of enhancement when we get towards phase 3 for African easterly waves, but that part of the season, now that we're dealing with 98L, this is basically the last hurrah for that. So as we get this into phase 4, phase 5, and 6, we are anticipating a little bit more upper level convergence, and that is going to lead to a little bit more of a suppressive phase. If we take a look here, with some of that suppression getting into parts of, maybe early parts of November, maybe a little bit more of a imperial wave propagation here. But by the time that we get to the end part of this, and again, the GFS is not really calling for any kind of enhanced weather there over our area. By the time that we get back around with the MJO, there's going to be so many frontal boundaries that is going to be moved through that we're going to end up pushing the basin off into more of a winter time configuration than we would be here for hurricane season. All right, let me check. Sammy. Oh, you're very welcome, Miss Betty. Sammy, I want a refund for this season. We didn't even get participation trophies. It doesn't count. No, no. This season definitely counts. We've been asking for a break for a long time, and we almost had it. And unfortunately, it does not look like that is going to continue. Extreme weather in Puerto Rico. Okay. Right now, you could see the potential for banding rain. Let's get over. Let's see. What would be the best way to show this? There's the Euro ensembles. I've been playing around. Let's get back here. Let me open up a new tab and we will pull the animator on this. And we will come to the HRRR United States. Can we get Puerto Rico in this at all? Absolutely not. Wonder if the rapid refresh gives us anything. Negative. Okay, so let's do this. Puerto Rico. No. Okay. Give me just a second, folks. I want to make sure that I get this for this gentleman over here on YouTube. Will this give it to me? Will this be close enough? Is the question. It'll be the Euro 1 hour. Okay, so we're at least getting the Euro. We've got rainfall amounts there getting into a couple inches. But we want to know about our severe weather. And we'll take a look at our available potential energy. I don't think that graphic is working. That doesn't seem right to where we have nothing. Let's go Euro. Again, let's see if we can get, we'll go there. Go regular Euro. Let's see if we can format this. Pull the GFS. Okay. Let's see here. The Euro is absolutely not working at all. So let's take a look at the GFS. The GFS is the one that has the most, close call there for the Euro. And I mean, there is quite a bit of convective potential energy out there. Available potential energy. Oh. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. That'd be day 7. It'd be next Tuesday. And this is the 18Z, by the way. This isn't even the 12Z. This is a brand new model. So the possibility of seeing severe weather, yes, that would be a possibility at that point in time, especially on parts of the southern shoreline there and getting up towards the mountains. Yeah. Yeah. I would err on the side of caution for sure. Definitely. Let's, being that it is Puerto Rico. Hello. Let's go here. Okay. Obviously, with the coastal and marine hazards, we've just got the outlook. Heavy rainfall, gusty winds. They don't really have it there, so let's go into the forecaster's discussion. We'll find it here. External rain bands, intermittent showers, gusty winds, and moderate rains. Interior and western quadrant, moderate to heavy rains and gusty winds. We're looking strong tropical wave, well to the south, combined with the effects sea breeze. I'm just looking for the severe part of it. Organization. Talking about the moisture and the potential for flooding and periods of heavy rainfall. Precipitable water exceeding the 90th percentile for this time of year. But, however, major discrepancies persist between the two primary global model solutions regarding the track and intensity of Invest 98L, which would be critical in determining the local weather impacts. So, the GFS solution depicts unusually strong pressure gradient with 925 millibar winds reaching 40 to 50 knots. It's only a couple thousand feet above, maybe around 2,000 feet, 2,500 feet above sea level there, which would be climatological, near or above climatological extremes. The Euro, not really much. Reduced cloud coverage. Ranging winds ranging between 13 and 15 knots. So yeah, I mean, right now could you see a severe weather if the GFS were to verify? Yeah, I would say it would be certainly a little bit more likely. If this gets a lot further to the west, though, your severe threat would still somewhat remain, but if it gets far enough to the west, you may not have much for anything with any type of shower and thunderstorm activity. You know, you get some intermittent showers moving through every now and then, but as far as like big time impacts go, no. Right now, Puerto Rico, you're on kind of the eastern side of that envelope, of that risk envelope. If it develops real quick, real early, and intensifies really quick, real early, then yes, Puerto Rico, you're kind of in play. But if it maintains its weakness and it really doesn't get pulled to the north, and it kind of stays kind of stuck out there and then starts to drift towards Jamaica, at that time, you still got to keep a watch on it because it's eventually going to turn back to the northeast. But as far as like really, really significant impacts, it should reduce considerably. Sure, Lisa, not a problem. Lisa on YouTube is asking to explain the MJO forecast here, and it's kind of confusing. All right, so I'm going to take this graphic here, and we are going to go over here, and I'm going to steal this graphic here. So, and the reason that I steal this graphic is to kind of, it is of the GEFS. So now we are looking at the GEFS. So as you can see, we have uplift or areas of enhancement right here located on this particular graphic, right here just crossing into phase 3. Okay, so let's compare that to this graphic. Now here we have October 21st, so this is the forecast for tomorrow, starting tomorrow. It initialized here today. As you can see, that enhanced phase or that uplift is in kind of this region right here. And it is forecast to then slowly drift this way. All right. Now, and I mean, like, I'm not going to get into the technicalities of these little things. We'll save that for a later date. But As you can see, we go forward in time on this graphic by going from the top to the bottom. Here at the bottom, this is November the 5th. You can see how this progresses like this. Well, if you look down here on this map, you'll note that where we're at in the world, 15 degrees north, 15 degrees south, and the equator. All right, you have Africa right here, the southern tip of India right here with Sri Lanka. You've got Malaysia, India, or Indonesia and stuff like that, all in this region. The Philippines right here. Disregard these little numbers right here. We're not necessarily worried about all that. It's just the overall map itself. So now that we kind of understand that, we're going to go back to this. Well, now that we know where the enhancement phase is and we know that its progression is kind of like this on the control, and it is rotating around the Earth, as you can see, 3 is kind of getting into parts of India. We're getting into 4, getting over there to kind of getting into southwestern or southeastern Asia. And then 5 is a little bit more maybe towards, getting towards maybe like Papua New Guinea and getting towards maybe the Philippines area. And then 6 would be a little bit further to the east of that. 7, we're getting towards like the Central Pacific. 8, we're getting back now towards the Western Hemisphere. We are crossing over the international date line and getting into parts of the Eastern Pacific as well. And then we live pretty much our basin bullseye. It would be phase 1. The Madden-Julian oscillation rotates like this around the planet about every 30 to 70 days, depending on, a lot of different variabilities and its intensities and stuff like that. So, but anytime that we see it getting into phase 1, and you can have an argument for phase 2 as well. These two it's basically what it comes down to when I pull this particular graphic up. What we're looking for is that box. And if you really want to get technical, this line as well. So that's what we're looking for. When we look at this, when we see the starter point outside of these areas, especially when it's just left our region and it is now going to then get off onto the other side of the planet, this is beautiful, because all of the rising air from and exhaust from the thunderstorms that go up from this enhanced phase or upper level divergence that allows for a lot of thunderstorms to develop. I'll pull up the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. You can see all of the massive amount of cloud cover here. All that increased moisture, all that increased enhancement. And we've got, tropical cyclones there in, potential for development, and one on the board right now. So as this continues to move across the planet, it will eventually, the Madden-Julian oscillation moves this way, like this, as to where everything else basically moves this way. So it's more of an upper level feature at that point. It's a lot of upper level divergence that allows for a lot of rising air and allows for a lot of thunderstorm activity to occur. All right. Okay. Now, if that helps, Lisa, just let me know. If you've still got any questions, by all means, please feel free to ask away. I'm going to jump out here to the Eastern Pacific here real quick. So, taking a look at the Eastern Pacific, we do have a highlighted area of interest out here into the Eastern Pacific, as noted by the National Hurricane Center. This currently has a 10% chance of development over the next 48 hours and a 50% chance of development over the next 7 days. It is not a threat to land, as we can see here. I've got the Euro pushed out 10 days. Nothing. May develop, may not. I've got the GEFS pushed out 10 days. May develop, may not. It's still no threat to land, regardless what it does. And the Euro AI. And we're not even going to bother to go pull the Google DeepMind on this because it was just the 60. But again, it's no threat to land. So we're just mentioning it because it's there, honestly. Now, jumping out to the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, we do have Tropical Storm Fengshen out here and Tropical Cyclone Chengi. And they're not too overly intense, though the wind field on Fengshen is quite wide and quite broad, creating a large area of shower and thunderstorm activity. The folks here in parts of the South China Sea, I'm certain that they've had enough with the tropical cyclones this year, albeit that it is forecast to, not become a typhoon any longer, at least from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center's perspective. But we are also looking at it potentially beginning to weaken on approach as it moves into central portions and potentially southern portions of Vietnam. So again, we're dealing with, these folks have been dealing with impacts all season long. I feel so sorry for them. It's not even funny. Now, when we get down to Chengi, down here into parts of the southern hemisphere, the southern Indian Ocean, this is up to 60 knots. One more tick, and it is then would be the equivalent of a Category 1 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale. So 65 knots is equivalent to our minimal hurricane strength. So as long as it remains kind of out over open waters, it'll be pretty to watch. It spins the opposite direction. We'll go over here. Let's jump over to Cyclonic WX because that's going to be the quickest one that we can get to. And we'll get here and we'll just run the loop on this. This is in the southern hemisphere. It spins clockwise for low pressures. So if you ever look at these, especially when one season ends, another one begins, and I'm usually watching everything across the world when it comes to tropical cyclones, and that transition when you go from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, and then from the southern hemisphere back to the northern hemisphere, just you always have to keep in mind, be like, oh wait, they spin the other direction, and so this way you don't lose your mind. All right, everybody, that's about all that I have here for tonight. I thank everybody for tuning in. We will be live again tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central here on YouTube and Facebook. Hopefully, it's a double-edged sword here. Hopefully we get advisories that we may be able to start picking up a lot more information and getting the discussion and all that other stuff from the National Hurricane Center. But at the same token, that then begins to significantly increase threats for folks. That means that it actually has developed and that we do have a closed center of circulation. And at that point, we get to see where this thing is going to decide that it wants to stop. Is it going to move towards Hispaniola or is it going to move towards Jamaica? Then at that point, how far west does this thing get over the next 24 or 48 hours? Remember, we saw in all the ensembles that 24-hour jump, and then everything was supposed to slow down pretty considerably. So we'll be keeping a very close watch on it and activating extra live streams as soon as we get enough information to do it. So, all right, everybody, have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow night. Good night.